All right, guys, welcome back to Within Tolerance. This is episode 14, and this is a long-awaited episode. We are joined with Jay Pierson and then, of course, Dylan Jackson. So without further ado, let's just get into it. Dylan, would you like to introduce Jay to everyone out there?
Yeah, so some of you may know him from his company, Pierson Workholding, or his YouTube channel by the same name, or Instagram. They make some amazing workholding stuff. But, Jay, who is Jay Pierson? Like, what is Pierson Workholding for those of, anybody who's listening who hasn't, seen your products? What's the real quick summary of what you guys do?
Yeah, well, first, thanks for having me on the podcast. I've been catching up on episodes. Pretty cool. I liked the episode with Danny because he's a robot guy, and we're diving headfirst again into robotics, and specifically UR. And then, of course, Adam. He's like an amazing machinist. So that's really neat. I feel like I'm in good company. So yeah, thanks for having me on. Pierson Workholding. So I started getting into manufacturing when I was a kid. My dad and mom, they ran a precision sheet metal shop, like electronic enclosures. Think of the enclosure on a PC, like on a desktop, that type of thing. Not another sheet metal would be like ducting, but they didn't do that. It's precision sheet metal. So I grew up around manufacturing. My dad was kind of a forward thinker in that industry, and he was one of the first in Southern California to have a CAM system running his turret punch press. Back then it was teletype, which was you would type in G code and it would punch holes in a 1-inch wide piece of paper tape. And then you'd feed it and the machine would read this paper tape, and then he actually used like RS-232, which was this awesome brand new technology back in the 80s, And just being around him, and he built his own quoting software, so he was pretty efficient. He was maybe I'll get into this later, but he practiced a lot of lean without knowing it. So in my book, you don't accidentally practice lean; it's very intentional. But he had a lot of things to reduce waste. Looking back, so that was that's how far back I go. I started getting into machining in 2002. I had an idea for some mountain bike suspension linkages, upgrades that I was designing, having other shops make, and then I would sell them on eBay. Through that, I realized, man, that I'm splitting the profits with the shop. I'm going to go buy a machine. I thought you could just buy a machine, which you can, and then make parts. And it's not that easy, especially in the early 2000s. There was no YouTube. Trade schools were around, but they just weren't as accessible, as I think they are today. The internet was barely around, and through that, I started machining. Teaching myself how to machine, first of all, and then realized, man, everyone just makes parts with like one at a time in a vise. This is crazy. I can't go anywhere. I feel like I'm handcuffed to this machine. And so I came up with this pallet system after searching for some type of pallet solution, and it didn't have any, or couldn't at least find any. And the ones I did find, you had to piece them together, and they were not affordable. And so so that was a year into business. And then within a few years, I kind of went all in developing workholding products. By this time, it was about 04, 05, with our first pallet system called the PRS, Pallet Retention System. And that's really the first product that launched the company. And then I fully pivoted to away from contract manufacturing, away from mountain bike parts in 2005. I call that my all-in moment, where I just turned my back on my customers, politely, and said, "Hey, I'm going a different direction. I can't make parts for you." And then I was kind of like, "Man, it's do or die. I have to make this work." And fully rebranded properly in 2009, and it's been just a fun ride ever since. So this is about our 10-year anniversary of being officially Pierson Workholding.
Very cool. So the PRS was your first one?
Yeah. That's the predecessor to our current Pro Pallet system.
Okay. So you said you were doing kind of job shop work and mountain bike parts. What were you guys called then? Because I don't think I've ever heard.
Yeah, it was Pierson Industries. Actually, if you go to pearsonindustries.com, it forwards to Pierson Workholding. I didn't own pearsonworkholding.com at the time. So that's when I got all my branding right. If you look at our logo, it says Workholding below our what's known as a 4-point star with a tail. That's the official USPTO designation. The Workholding, before it was just Pierson with the star. Now it's Pierson star and then the Workholding portion. So yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. So it kind of came out of necessity that you needed to make Workholding.
Absolutely. I mean, I wanted to be lazy at the machine. And I mean, you guys as business owners and guys in the industry, you can't run a machine and grow a business at the same time. It may seem like it may feel like it, but man, there's so many responsibilities on a entrepreneur's plate that running a machine is just not one you should allow to take up a lot of your time. So my pallet system, the PRS, actually the first one that I used, it was just really rough looking. It served a purpose to make contract manufacturing parts, microwave communication components, and that was it. So yeah, that's why I developed it for my own needs first.
Well, it looks like a lot of the design carries over to the current Pro pallet system.
Yeah. So the biggest change is that the PRS had square, what are called brake covers, those two ball lock systems. Mm-hmm. They had two dowels on each side that pushed out because I could machine them. I could mill them. I didn't have a lathe. Now we've got several lathes in the company. So we just turned the round brake covers is what they're called. And that was it's a more, I suppose, mechanically accepted design of a ball lock system. You know, people just know what it looks like, or they understand the mechanism just by looking at it.
Totally. Yeah.
So Jay, walk through, for anyone that is listening that doesn't know about your pallet system, walk through like how it works, like what are the pros, what are the cons to it? I know there's not a lot of cons to it, but walk through why should I switch from a vise to a pallet system?
Yeah, great question. So in manufacturing, when you're trying to be competitive, like I said, if you have a person standing in front of each machine and a 7 or 10 minute cycle time, they only have about that 7 to 10 minute window to go do something else. So what a pallet system does is I relate it to baking cupcakes, believe it or not. So no baker bakes a cupcake one at a time. They put in a tray of parts, walk away, come back, So it's that same concept. We use the term, and I'm pretty sure we've coined the term high density work holding. When you look at a vise and you look at a part being held in it, the majority of the surface area in the work envelope is the body of the vise. You've got the sliding carriers, the jaws, the body, all that. What a pallet system allows you to do is to use mini clamps, like pretty much any of the pit bull type clamps or Uniforce clamps, to hold 10, 20, 30, sometimes 50 parts on a pallet ranging from 8 by 12 to 10 by 16. We have 4 sizes of pallets. And then you have a pair of these pallets, identical, so that when one pallet of parts is being machined, you're working on taking the parts in and out of the second pallet. And then you literally have 20-second spindle downtime where the machine stops, you blow off the pallet, you swap them, you press start, and you go back to changing parts on the pallet or tending another machine. So that's the concept of a pallet system in general. Our pallet systems are like the best priced. They have the best accuracy. We have a direct sales model. They're always in stock. We're just, humbly, I'm saying that the pallet system is just killing it in the industry. It's if you have any type of production, or even if you want to take a vise and you have some prototype work, you palletize your vise. You put that vise on the pallet, indicate it one time, and then you put it on the pallet system, and you don't have you've got a huge set of production right there. So palletized work holding is the future. Even if I didn't own this company, I would say, yes, it is the future. So, yeah.
So what made you guys step into vacuum work holding? Because I always actually thought that you guys started in vacuum work holding and made your way into pallets. I didn't realize it was the other way around.
Yeah. So, I mean, necessity again, 2009, I was working on a vacuum system, the ones that were out there. So vacuum systems, traditionally, at least in our industry, borrow from the woodworking industry. And that is just the wrong approach. You have big vacuum pumps with tanks, high CFM, pretty high vacuum levels, and they are just hogs. They are just energy hogs. Tanks fill up with coolant, with chips. If you get coolant or a chip in a rotary vane vacuum pump, it's pretty much a really expensive doorstop at that point. They're just almost impossible to refurbish. So I looked at that and went, man, there's this science called the Venturi principle, which generates a vacuum based on the flow of high pressure air. And so kind of seeing that we don't need high CFM, you need a high vacuum level, low CFM, because when you put a metal part on a vacuum chuck and it reaches maximum vacuum, there's no more air. There's no more air movement. That CFM is irrelevant. We just need absolute maximum holding power deployed to that workpiece. So seeing all that science that was out there, nothing really meeting the needs of the industry, I'm like, let's just do that. We came out with the SmartVac 1 in 2009, and then about February 2010, the SmartVac 2, it looks almost identical to what you see on our website today.
Okay, that's great. I just actually started. Somebody lent me one of your VPUs, and I'm just kind of going through the motions of making my own vacuum workholding right now. So I'm really excited to start playing around with it.
Sweet. Yeah.
So I guess another question we had was, how did you get into lean manufacturing? You're kind of known in the industry as practicing so much lean and implementing it so simply compared to, all this 5S stuff that a lot of people have exposure to really freaks them out about the word lean and things like that. And, how did you start on it? How did you start implementing it in your business? Things like that. Yeah.
So we started practicing lean out of necessity. We were at a breaking point. I had hired my right-hand man to this day, John Clifton, high pay, high output, high cost, amazing employee. And so I thought, this guy's going to solve all my problems, got this growing company. And 6 months into it, it was like worse. We could not get stuff done. And then we had a pretty big sale that we lost because we couldn't deliver it in the amount of time the customer needed. And I was crushed. It was like about $8,000 or $9,000 order that just went bye-bye, And so I went home and I had heard of lean. For some reason, it was in the back of my mind. And I went to YouTube and typed in lean shop, and lean shop tour was auto-suggested. Mm-hmm. So I watched it, and up popped this video from a guy named Paul Akers. Yeah, and it's about, his shop tour is about like 12 or 13 minutes. And I was just totally blown away. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is, wow. I can't believe that small companies function like that. This is amazing. Went back to work the next morning, played it in the conference room for my guy, John. And John's a little bit, he's pretty down to earth. Like if I have big ideas and he's like, okay, well, what do you just want me to do right now? Boil it down. And I thought, honestly, just because most people don't like change, that John would not like it. And he slowly turned to me after the video was over and he said, that's amazing. We need to start doing that right now. So I'm like, yes, we do. So we started, and this is my advice for anyone, start small, start simple. There's this phrase, fix what bugs you. If you're doing something like in a process running a machine, you're like, man, I'm tired of like bending over and picking up the raw material off the ground. Go get a cart and just bring it up to waist level. If you're walking around looking for Allen wrenches, just get the Allen wrenches you need, keep them with that machine, buy another pack, tool up every machine, which is just exactly what you need to do setups. We started with our setup cart, our mill setup cart, and put in Kaizen foam. So we had all of our tools at our fingertips, no more, no less. And it almost hasn't changed in the 5 years that we've been practicing lean.
So, Jay, another question we had written down here was, how do you see other small shops, especially shops like us, that's, just me or Dylan has a partner, but, a couple employees or just a one-man show? What's the most common, waste of motion or just, mistake that these small shops make? I know you just kind of touched on that, but is there anything else?
Yeah, well, I would say, to back up a minute, I would say not seeing their need for it, not doing lean, not even looking into it, because I speak about lean every now and then at different industry events locally and of course our YouTube videos. And some people go, "Oh, we tried lean, it didn't work." Well, you didn't try the right lean, or you were soured by a previous attempt at a different company to attempt to try and do lean. And so I would say definitely not seeing your need for it, not practicing it. Eventually, if your company is going to grow, if it's going to scale, you need to have some type of process and principles in place. And lean is almost 100 years old, proven by Toyota. They've been doing it for like 60 or 70 years, and there's so many different versions. We are pretty, at least in the lean community, people are very sharing of their knowledge, of their processes. And that's just the lean we practice is a people-centric lean, not profit-centric. So if you can make your workplace enjoyable, safe, easy for your employees, profit, all that stuff, that's a byproduct. It's a positive byproduct of lean. So
if you can just get off your butt and actually do, at least just try, but start small.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, so I say, like, okay, going back to my advice, start small, start simple. Just do one simple thing a day. Like, I just toured a company and they have a running tally of how many improvements they made. And I said, well, some of these employees, they're up to let's see, that was around the 25th last week that I was at this event. And they were up to like 30 improvements for that month alone on the 25th day of the month. Some were simple as, you know what, I'm left-handed, and for some reason my phone is on the right-hand side of my desk. I just moved it over, little things like that. And when you get a bunch of little improvements going, and you build that culture of continual improvement, it snowballs. And next thing you know, you're like easy sailing.
So how do you go about changing people's, like, have you had employees that have butted heads with you over that? And how have you changed their mind? I think I heard you talk about it recently that, eventually enough is enough and you let them go. But, how can you go about changing somebody's mind?
Well, I would say a good life principle is you can't change people. You just can't. People can barely change themselves. If they could, there'd be no such thing as like addiction, so,
right.
Or bad habits. And so my job is to get people to identify waste and make small improvements to eliminate it. That's it. And so, if a guy, like I always say, if I get that question, what do you do with an employee that isn't picking up on lean? And I just say, let them suffer, let them suffer, let them bend over, picking up heavy plates off the ground, let them keep walking. Now there's an extent where if an employee's bad attitude or lack of willingness to jump on the lean bandwagon, if they're not going to do that and affects the productivity of the company, it's time for correction. I've never fired anyone for, not being lean, but we've had lots of talks like, hey, dude, you have to do this. Your job is not to run this machine. Your job is to improve the process of running the machine. Your job is not to ship boxes. Your job is to improve how we ship boxes, And so getting them to understand that their mindset is just not in the right place. And first of all, getting them to understand that you have their best interests in mind. That's huge, because if you're doing it for profits, it just gets gross. You're seen as like a Scrooge, and it's just weird. And then they start tying improvements to their paycheck, and those are totally two different ballparks. when you look at like what people value, what humans value, it's recognition, it's impact, it's freedom, it's influence. Money is barely cracks the top 5. So like we do morning meetings, and there's 6 of us in the morning meeting, and all of the comments that you get in the morning meeting are positive. They really like working here. So that's when I hear that, I'm like, okay, I'm on the right track. My guys are on the right track. I'm good.
So in that same vein, do you go about tracking improvements? And if so, how do you discourage that linking of, pay with improvements or things like that?
Yeah, I don't track improvements. We highlight them. We celebrate them. Hey, everyone, check out what this small improvement Juan did. Or, wow, John, you totally redid the foam in the Kaizen, the lathe setup cart. That's awesome. We celebrate that. But then going back to like profit being a kind of like a side effect or a side benefit of lean. So next thing you know, we're going home on time. Like it's kind of at this point a company policy that we don't work nights, weekends, or overtime. We have lives at home at night. We have lives on the weekend, and then we do regular bonuses and other monetary compensations and benefits because we go, wow, we hit all our numbers this month. We had a record month. Yeah, let's do some profit sharing. So there's not a direct link to their improvements to their paycheck, because that's a wrong link. It should be an improvement is linked to their happiness. Happiness creates good products and a healthy working environment, and a company that when all things are working right, it just has a higher profit margin. And I, as a benevolent shop owner, I'm going to share the profits with the employees. So it's not a direct link. It's a roundabout link to profits, more money in their pocket.
Okay, that makes total sense. So I had one question I put up here, and it came up while watching your robot series, which was fantastic, by the way. I mean, editing, all that stuff, it was really a lot of fun to watch. And then I had a demo of a UR the following week after, I think, the last episode. So it was kind of full circle and very cool. But one thing that came up in it, and I don't know if I've ever seen it explained, is where does your idea of design things 3 times come from? And, why is this important, and what made you start that philosophy?
Yeah, I would say that comes from me watching and working with people in the graphic design industry. There's this thing like if I ask a graphic designer to do a business card, they're going to give me 3 comps, and then I pick one, and then they revise it. That's great. That's kind of the same thing. For some reason, in manufacturing, we follow. The whole thing like function. Like if it works, it's good. It's done. As a designer, I follow 3 things. First of all, there has to be function. Yes. It has to work. Then I also look at the form, like what it looks like. Does it look good? Does it look bad? This latest product that's probably going to come out in January, it has no visible fasteners on it. It's a really beautiful design, looks really sleek. And then the third thing is, I don't know if this is a word, but manufacturability. So
yeah, totally.
Okay, good. So it's got to work. First of all, it's got to look good. It's got to have good form, and it's got to be easy to manufacture, or at least if I can design something where we don't have to add an additional op, that's better. So like right now, this new product, I'm in the probably 4th iteration, and I'm really fine tuning the manufacturability of it. So that's just it. And really from a personal growth standpoint, we only get better the more times we do something. Why not? We've got the time. Why not do it at least 2 more times from scratch?
Right. So is this the 4th axis fixture you're talking about? Because we had actually quite a few people, Jody Oliphant, Daring Manufacturing, a few people on Instagram were all asking, when's it going to be available? When's it going to come out?
Yeah, I get that question. I should probably hold my cards a little closer to my chest sometimes, but I just want to get it out there. Just throw it on Instagram, just see the reaction, questions that pop up. And, the community in social media, especially Instagram, it's such a positive, great community. It's not like the garbage YouTube comments, but it's I've met a lot of these people at different industry things, and so to get their feedback and like asking what size is it, and I go, yeah, it's this size. Oh, you mean so it won't fit on this? And I go, wow, yeah, you're right. It won't fit on this. Okay, maybe we do an adapter or a change, or will it have a integrated vise, or will it work as a 0-point system, or will it have a 96 millimeter Lang pattern? Well, yes, it will now. So I should. When we develop a product, we beat it up in-house for as long as we can. Like, for example, the Rotovice, we use it in-house for 2 years before it ever saw any public light. So, that's kind of like my whole design philosophy. It has to meet a need. We design it 3 times, and then we beat it up in-house. So.
Okay. So there was actually some questions that popped up on Instagram in relation to product costs and things like that. Triple Caution Machine Works and Adam the Machinist, actually. So they asked, how often are you looking at your product component costs? What tools do you use to track those kinds of things and continuous improvement, or I guess cost improvement on those? And then how do you assign a price to your product? Is it as simple as cost plus margin, or should you work from a target price backwards? Could you go through that kind of process with us?
Yeah, I do. So the first question, how many times do I look at the costs and things like that? Rarely. I rarely do that. Initially, you look at cost, you look at the design, eliminating fasteners. That's been a big push in the iterations of our products, because it's just a silly thing. It's not the cost of the fastener itself. It's picking it up. It's the Loctite. It's screwing it down. It's getting it to the right torque. If you can cut fasteners, that's huge all across the board. So, that's really done. The costing of it is done in the design phase. I think, the few percentage points that, inflation bumps up cost of products every year, it's not that big of a deal to me. We usually just absorb those and keep the price the same. Every few years, we do have a price increase just to catch up, or maybe get ahead of it if it's a hot seller. What was the other?
How do you assign a price to a product? I mean, is it just cost plus margin, or?
Okay, well, I always start with the market. Will people pay X amount of dollars for this product? And I suppose that looking at like cost of materials and cost to make it, and then a markup from there, I would say that's not a very good approach, because it doesn't take the market into account. The way I look at it is, you have to look at a product with three ways. Like, what does it do? First of all, that kind of goes back to the function. What is it? First of all, is it an inanimate object? Is it a tool? And then finally, how does it make you feel? So let's, I don't know, what's a good example? Okay, perfect. So, so Payton, you make Lego things, okay?
Yes.
So let's look at that. Let's look at what that is. Now, let's take an ounce of plastic and we turn it into a plastic spoon. People just care, what is it? They're not going, wow, look at this cool polypropylene spoon. It's white and it matches my mouth perfectly. No, they're just like, it's a spoon. They're going to throw it away. Okay. It just puts food in my mouth, But then when you get into like what you make, they go, wow, look at this figure or this weapon. That's awesome, And so it is also let's just round up and say it is an ounce of plastic. Okay, what does it do? Well, it doesn't really, maybe it does something, it completes a set or something. But now they care about, what is it? It's a cool Lego figure and he's got this killer AR gun, no pun intended. And then that third thing, how it makes you feel. Okay, oh man, I swear I didn't pre-plan this. Another ounce of plastic, the American Express Black Card. It's just a credit card, but it's an invite-only credit card. I think there's like a $5,000 or $10,000 annual fee to own it. So when you pull that out at a restaurant or a club, I haven't been to a club in like decades, but you did. It's gonna turn attention, and that makes you feel good. So you have an ounce of plastic. One's a spoon, one's a Lego figure, and one's an American Express black card. Actually, I think it's titanium because the customer brought one in and it was titanium. But just go with the plastic analogy. 3 different purposes, 3 different price points, but it's all based on the market. So cost plus margin doesn't take the market into account. Not a recommended pricing structure. If you're making plastic spoons, a commodity item, yes, it's probably cost plus margin. If you're making Lego figures, it's cost plus marketing. If you're making American Express black cards, it's all marketing. It has nothing to do with cost. So probably those three ways is how I would break it down.
I swear Jay prepared more for this podcast than Dylan and I did.
That was fantastic.
Okay, good.
So another kind of vein of questions we were getting and that we came up with was machinery. So robots, machine tools. One question was, how did you decide to go over for Doosan lathes versus Haas? Because it seems like you guys have quite a bit of love for Haas. A lot of your machines are Haas. What made you, step to a Fanuc and all these things that are so different from a Haas?
Yeah. So my first machine that I bought in 2002 was a used model year 2000 mini mill, and still own it to this day. Emotionally attached to it. Probably going to keep it. And so I'm just used to Haas mills. Fast forwarding to where we are today, we would probably absolutely stay with Haas mills just because we're big on standardized work. So someone can walk up to my 2000 mini mill and walk up to the 2019 what's called UMC 500 that's coming soon.
Oh, congrats.
Thank you. And they just get it. They can run them both. And now the Doosons, I bought my first Doosan in 2015 when my guy came on board to work for me. He had worked with Doosons and the Fanuc control, and I just needed him to start cranking out parts on day one. So I really didn't put much thought into it. I'm like, what do you think of the machines? They're great. Okay. Can you run a new one? Yes. And when can you jump in? Okay, I can start on this date. Great. Let's time that. So I bought that. And then once a Doosan lathe hit our shop floor, man, they are such well-built lathes. I'm sure the mills are too, but the lathes are just like rock solid. On our Instagram, we do hard turning. Maybe you've seen a few posts of hard turning these bushings. They hold a tenth all day long. And just really well-built machines and a lot of good value. I think they're probably a little bit more pricey than a Haas, maybe like 10% more. But such a great value. And then our second, let's see, what is it? Lynx 220 LSYC, subspindle, Y-axis, live tooling. Such a great machine. I tell people it's about as close to printing money without going to jail. Because it just spits out finished parts that are perfect. So that's how we standardize.
What do you make on that one? Is that like your, what you said was a brake shield? Is that correct?
Yeah, we make the brake cover. Oh, no, we don't, because the brake cover starts out as a slug. Anything that we bar pull goes on that machine. Okay. So the locking ring that goes on the bottom of the pallets, all the internal components, pretty much every round component that goes into our pallet systems and our vacuum systems is just spit out by that. Our shoulder bolts, they just come out finished. It's great.
Oh, wow. So that thing is running all the time then, I'm sure.
It's our most often run machine. Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
That's great.
Have you guys standardized the tooling on that so there's not as much setup time?
Yeah, we standardize. It's got 24 turret positions, which is great. We standardize like on our VF. We have 2 machines that are standardized. The tools never come out unless we break them, and we don't break tools these days. Standardizing work offsets and tool offsets and tools. It's huge. That's just the way to get ahead because we'll go from running, our vacuum power units, pull up a new program, put a raw piece of material on a vacuum chuck, and press start and start making our 9.5 by 14 vacuum chucks, and literally walk away. Zero setup time. The only setup time is pulling up the program into memory.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So along that same vein, kind of walk us, how did you get back into robots? Because I know you had one, you got rid of it. I've seen the e-controller now. It's like super easy to use. So I imagine that's kind of part of the reason you jumped back into one.
Mm-hmm.
Convex Machine on Instagram asked, what do you think of the new 16E? And then how soon would you add another robot?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So robots, I bought a UR10, not the E, but a UR10 in 2014, thinking that would be my first high output employee. Way over my head. Not so much the robot. The robot itself is really simple and intuitive. It's great, but it's all the peripheral stuff. Like, first of all, safety, making sure you're not dropping parts on your foot or smacking the glass. It needs to know there's always has to be like checks that the door is open before it goes to move in. We use vacuum to hold the part in the machine and also the end effector. And so we need to turn it on and make sure a vacuum switch closes to make sure we're actually holding on to the part. And it's all that peripheral stuff that really gets skipped in the sales pitch of robots. This time around, I bought a camera from Robotique, which is amazing, because before I would have to perfectly align a stack of parts to pick it up. First problem there, flat parts like to stick together. And so how do you separate them? A human could easily go, oh, whoops, I picked up one part, the top part, and the bottom part is stuck to it. And I'm talking about like big flat panels, the vacuum chuck type stuff. So then now how do you know you're holding that part in the right spot? So you have to put like a pin board where it's at a 45-degree angle, and you drop off the part and gravity pulls it down into resting against 3 pins. Then it goes and picks it up at a known location, accurate location. Then it loads it into the machine. Did it load it right? Were there chips in the vise? Is it pinching anything? Is the vacuum functioning? Is our air pressure right? All that stuff. And so that's what was the hang up my first time around in 2014. This time we look at, how many pallets we make. We're going to do about 2,500 pallets for our Pro and Mini systems this year.
Wow.
I am not putting a human in front of that machine. That is a robot job all day long. And so that's why we went back to that. The UR16E, awesome. Like, that is going to be the next robot that we buy just because of the payload. I bought the UR10E for the payload, which is like 22 pounds. Not so much the reach. The reach is nice, but the payload was really what I was looking for. So the UR16E is pretty much like a UR5 with about 3 feet of reach, but that, like 33 or 35 pound capacity, whereas the UR10 is 22 pounds. Definitely going to use that for the heavier parts we load in the lathe and pallets, full on pallets in the mill. So yeah, I love it. I'm so glad they came out with it.
Yeah, I until somebody asked the question, I had no idea that they even released it. And then I had, went down that wormhole of checking it all out, and it's exciting.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah.
So another question we had, or the question that I had was, what are the biggest mistakes you see people make with both vacuum and pallet technology? When they're getting started, what do you, I guess, get the most questions that, I know people email you questions or they need help on their pallets. What do you see the most often?
Yeah. For vacuum work holding, that's easy. If they just took the time to really understand that it's all based off of 2 things: the power of the vacuum, our vacuum power unit's got that covered, really high vacuum power, and then the surface area. So like, I'll get a call saying, "Hey man, I bought your system, it ain't working. Can I return it?" And I go, "Well, let's talk about it first. What's going on?" Trying to hold this part, I say, "What are the rough dimensions?" About a 1/2 inch square. And I go, "Okay, now to hold a 1/2 inch square part, well, vacuum, not just our vacuum, but all vacuum technology has an upper limit. It's about 14 pounds per square inch. So now that half-inch square part has a maximum holding power with using vacuum of, 3.5 pounds. You can barely touch that with your finger, definitely not an end mill. So not educating themselves on the limitations of vacuum. It's really meant for if you absolutely can't hold it in a vise and it's a larger panel or a plate or something like that. Yes, vacuum is the best way to go. The second thing, and I've done a video about this, is absolutely bad gasketing. People say, man, this thing doesn't work at all. And I say, well, can you send me a picture? And I look and there's like a 1/4 inch gap in the black rubber gasket. I'm like, dude, you've got a huge leak there. Oh, that matters? Yeah, it matters. It actually matters. So, and that's really, if they just educated themselves more, that you would get that. Sounds like I'm throwing my customers under the bus, but really it's just a little homework up front. And certainly the volume of YouTube videos we've done has made my phone ring less and less. I was getting about the same 10 or 15 questions every day. And now I get maybe 1 or 2 phone calls a day because of that. So yeah, bad gasketing and not understanding the science behind vacuum. For pallets, I would say, not considering the human factor, that when you buy a 10-inch by 16-inch pallet, out of the box, it's 24 pounds loaded up with parts. And I don't think people want to be lifting 30 or 35 pounds in and out of a machine all day long. And so I always say go with the smallest pallet possible. The only time you go to a bigger pallet is if your parts don't fit, or if you can almost squeeze in like an extra row of parts. If you're right on the edge, then go ahead and go to that larger pallet. So those are those 2 things.
Yeah.
So Jay, out of all the products that you've made, we had a question of what is like the most, like what product are you the most proud of? Is it the new 4th axis fixture, or is it maybe just the Pro Pallet system, or is it maybe something that you haven't even released yet?
Wow. Oh man. It's like asking which one of my children do I love the most. I think I like each of them. I'm proud of each of them for different things. Certainly our pallet system is what started our company. Without a doubt, the vacuum product line built the company. That's more than, like 60% of the company's revenue is the vacuum. And I love the RotoVice because it really is changing people's approach to 4th and 5th axis work or work holding, I suppose, or approach. Because, man, when we advertise on the website saying that it's a 12-time production boost over single part vise work holding. Because with a vise, you're holding one part and you have access to one face. With the RotoVice, you're holding 4 parts, and each one of those parts you can access 3 faces. So 3 times 4, 12. And we sell a ton of these through Haas dealers because they show their customer the RotoVice, and it's instantly intuitive. It's just a mini shrunken down tombstone, essentially tombstone vise. And then the customer goes, yeah, I got to have that. And then the HFO says, well, you need a rotary unit to sell it. Let's package it, so they have this symbiotic relationship. And, it's definitely not, it's the newest product. It's about 2 years old. We don't see a lot on social media about it, but I mean, we have customers that own multiple ones, and they say, yeah, we used to keep our 4th axis on the shelf for that quote unquote 1 or 2 jobs a year. Now it's permanently bolted. We have the RotoVice there, and that is our rotary machine. And any part that we have to do that fits within a 3-inch square cube and needs holes or machining on multiple faces, it goes in the RotoVice. Totally improves our throughput. And we developed the RotoVice out of a need to make our vacuum power units for our vacuum line quicker. And quick story behind that, we built the prototype. And I said, okay, just run this. Hey, I got some meetings. I'll come back at the end of the day. Let me know how it went. And my guy, John, was running them. And he said, okay, we're good to go on that. And this was at the end of the day. And I said, okay, so yeah, good to go for the next, like lot run, or do we need to buy more material? He said, oh, no, they're all done. And I think in one day we made like 80 of them, where it would take about a week to get 50 of them completed. So this thing is just like, it was just eating aluminum for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. It was crazy how much throughput we got with just multiple parts and access to multiple faces, because they're machined on all 6 sides. So 2 ops in the rotovice and it comes out done. So I'm really more so proud of the rotovice just because it's revolutionized how we make our other products in our in-house processes.
So the rotovice, that's cast iron, isn't it?
It is.
So
it's Durabar.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
So do you get that? Like, I can't remember if it was on a shop tour, but you had mentioned you get like, you don't machine that in-house, do you?
Oh, we do. Yeah, it comes as just a long 6-foot bar, 4-inch square. We saw it up roughly into a 9-inch blanks, and then we machine every surface of it.
Really? I did not know that.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That must be the most labor-intensive part you make, I would imagine.
Yeah, it is definitely the most complicated part we make. We've got it down to 4 operations, but they're long. It takes a long time. And then it goes to heat treat. It goes to bead blasting. It gets nickel plated, and it comes back to us for grinding. Tolerance on that is plus or minus 0.2. We're usually plus or minus 1/10. It's a tricky part to make. So, but yeah, it's worth it. We try and price it. That's one of the things. It should cost $5,000 if I went off the cost plus approach, but it's right at $29.95, and we have a good margin built into it. But yeah, if we were to do cost plus, it would be so expensive. So $3,000 is right at that point where a guy goes, yeah, I spent like $8,000 for the rotor unit that sits there. Why not spend another $3,000 and get this huge production boost? So again, going back to the market decides pricing.
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, I've spent $1,500 on a normal vise that I can't rotate on a 4th axis. So, that makes total sense. That's really cool. I had no idea there was that much work put into them.
Yeah. Very labor intensive.
So you had mentioned UMC 500. I guess let's talk about your process for deciding on new machinery, and then maybe if you're willing to share a little bit about your new machinery that's coming.
Yeah. So we just did a podcast. We haven't launched it or anything. We've got a few episodes in the can. We had Mark Terryberry from Haas out as a guest.
Oh, that's awesome. Mark's great.
Yeah. Yeah. He's the Haas factory is about 45 minutes from us, and he's about 30 minutes from where he lives. And I went on record saying that I feel that over time, the UMC 500 is going to be the new hot seller. It's going to be, I think I said it's going to be the new VF2 SS. Now, I know that it's like almost double the price as a base VF2, but when you look at the setup reduction and access to multiple sides of a workpiece, it's just where this industry is going. We don't have any 5-axis mills. That's why I bought that one. I think the price is right. The support is right. Probably not the greatest 5-axis machine out there, because Haas is more of a value brand, but it's accurate. I mean, I'm sure there's Okumas or Matsuras or whatever, or DMG Moris that are better. I would probably say they are, but man, to put it in a shop for a little over $100,000 is just awesome. And so my process in buying machinery in general is I look at first of all, like if there's a process that we want to streamline, like our VF4 SS, every component, every vacuum chuck, every bottom plate, everything except for the turned components in our vacuum line get made on the VF4 with standardized work offsets and every pocket of the 30 tool changer filled. And that's it. And so that is a process machine. We don't do prototypes. We don't do anything else on that. Our VF2C, C being it's our third VF2, our VF2C only runs pallets and the bases for our mini and pro pallet system. That's it. We don't do anything else in it. So when I look at parts that maybe have multiple operations, the UMC 500, I go, oh man, we could first of all develop a product, a round pallet system to palletize that so we can access multiple faces and just crank out just way more throughput than if we did like even the Rotovice or palletizing. It's got its own place, especially if you want to, like we do these hand valves that we want to redesign it, and we have to access 4 faces, and it's just an excuse for me to buy a 5-axis machine, to be honest. But 5-axis is the future. In 20 years, I think half of machines should be 5-axis. 3-axis VMCs will never go away. I get that. But 5-axis, that's just where the industry's going. I want a piece of that industry, and I can't wait for it to arrive. So, and then the other thing I would probably advise people is don't always shop on price. Shop on ROI, return on investment. Like the robot, it costs roughly, they're about 30, 40, 50,000 for the the UR3, 5, and 10. Those are rough numbers, but I go, okay, this is a process that frees up an employee, and more importantly, a human, to use his brain to work on developing better processes instead of standing and tending a machine. So the $50,000 price tag for the UR10E, that's just built into the company, kind of like the ROI spreadsheet. And I go, yeah, that's going to pay off not just in dollars and cents, but also in freed up manpower and brain power, especially. So, but again, I think the UMC 500, perfect pricing for that type of machine.
So what specs did you go with? Because I can't remember whose shop tour it was, one of the Johns, but you didn't get probing on one of your machines. You didn't get some other option because you didn't think you were going to use it. You knew it was going to be a process machine. So are you, probing and fully spec'd out, or where'd you land on your UMC?
Yeah. So, probing comes with it, which is nice because, I probably would have gotten a probe with that. Through spindle coolant, that'll be our first through spindle coolant machine. Let's see, what was the other? Chip auger, 50 tool changer. What else? High speed machining. I can't remember if it came with it, but it does have high speed machining. We opted to get that. And I think that's it. I try and keep my machines pretty basic because you can always add on.
Right. Haas is great about that.
Right. I think I got an auto door. I'm not sure about that. I can't remember. But pretty basic. It was spec'd well. I went with the standard spindle, the 8100 RPM spindle. That's fine. I considered the what is it, Capto or
HSK?
Yeah, thank you, HSK. But I think it was like a $16,000 or $20,000 price tag. And again, going back to that thing of that we try and standardize as much as possible. I just want a Cat 40 tool holder with the Haas retention knob, and so all our existing tooling will work in that. So
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Do you have high speed machining? Go for it, Payton.
Oh, I was just going to say, going back to one of your shop interviews, I believe you said something, you coined the phrase, it's like, if you buy 3 Haas's, you get 1 free type thing. And I really like that thought process. Like you said, you can always add on later. And for doing pallets and whatnot, you don't really need a probe to some extent.
Yeah, I mean, we have our pallet base in the middle of the machine, and we find the center of the round pin, that's our XY origin, and then the top of one of the 4 stainless pads as our Z0. And then in Fusion 360, we model everything up. So we're not finding edges, we're not probing, we're just pressing start, and that's just the way to do it. So yeah, my comment in different times I've spoken is there's only one machine in the entire shop out of 8 machines that has a probe, because the process dictated that. It's the machine, again, the VF2C that makes pallets. They're cut from extrusions. Sometimes the extrusion is right on the money, 8 inches wide. Sometimes it's 8 inch, 60 thou. or 7-inch 980, and then it's also saw cut. And I didn't want my guys having to center it perfectly. I just want them to put it in. Now the robot's putting it in, probing it, and then creating very consistent parts with all the features centered. So that's why we got probing for the VF2C. But so the most popular Haas machine is a VF2 Super Speed. And I think that costs like 12 grand more. You get probing for another 6 grand. You're up to 18. You get the quad augers. Maybe that's another 5. I don't know how much that costs. And then you multiply that by 3 or 4 machines. You could have gone without all those niceties and had a 4th spindle. And for us, I mean, we're not a job shop, but for us, having available spindles is huge, because say we, like just a few days ago, an order came in for 8 pallet systems. And then, so that's a significant portion of the purposely small inventory that we have, on the shelf. We need to replenish that inventory. And now we need to put material in machines that are free, like today. And just having extra spindles open at, if we have 4 machines, like we have 4 mills on the floor right now, we couldn't, we have 5. If we had 3, but they were super fast and super souped up, that would still not get us ahead as compared to 2 machines where one runs op 1, the next one right next to it runs op 2, and we're flowing parts, one piece flow that's a lean term, where by the end of the day or within the first hour, we have parts fully machined that we can go to first article inspection. So that's the approach to multiple machines, even if they're like less spec'd out.
Yeah, that makes total sense. So you mentioned first article inspection. How do you guys go about inspection and documentation and all of that for your own products?
Yeah. So when I look at the industry, I see inspection departments, inspection rooms, inspection people. Like, this is my inspection guy. I think I've heard other people say that in the industry. For me, gosh, that seems kind of backwards. Now, I don't know the whole process that people follow in the industry, but instead of centralized one-time first article inspection, I would rather have decentralized repetitive every 10th part inspection. So, we have inspection tools that are at almost every machine, at least every other machine. And then we have a system of trays. So we have red dots on every 10th pocket in the tray. And we have plastic molded trays. I think they're vacuum formed. You can do like egg crates also. But we put red dots at the bottom of that. If the operator puts a component in that red dot, stop the machine, don't press start, inspect that, so that we have ongoing inspection, not just that first article inspection. So, and we do have like really good first article inspection type stuff. We don't have a CMM kind of weighing it. I kind of don't feel like we need a CMM at this point. We have an amazing digital height gauge that's makes life so easy. And then we'll make sure, hey, okay, the program is right. That just proves out that our geometry and all the features are there. Then we go on to that decentralized, higher quantity inspection in the middle of the process.
Okay. Do you have people cross-check each other's first articles, or is it all just you trust your people, you've got a small crew, and that's good enough?
Yeah. So when we do the first article, it's the operator and the programmer. And usually if I see them meeting, I'll walk over just to watch, and they're used to that. The more eyes we can get on the first article, the more chances we're going to come to obviously picking up a problem. A lot of the things that I make the call on is surface finishes. So I'll look at it, I'll go, no, let's switch out the end mill. Let's rotate them. Let's move the finisher to the rougher position and get a new tool out of our parts bin, our tool crib, and put a new finisher. And that's what I do at the beginning of a part run. But then no, after that, it's pretty much like John. He's the shop foreman now. He'll walk by. He knows that at any time he can walk up to one of my operators and do a full article inspection at that point. And usually it's like, hey, which one did you not inspect? Because there's a good chance I'm going to pick one up that you did inspect, because we do inspections so often.
Okay. Yeah, that's a great process, especially for
Mm-hmm.
the size crew you have. That's fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
So one question Triple Caution Machine Works also contributed was, what do you think your greatest waste, if any, is currently?
Oh, yeah, easy communication. That crept up. I take full ownership of this by not watching the culture of the business. So one of the tenets that Lean promotes is the morning meeting. We just started doing morning meetings. I thought I had invented a better system of going to each individual at the beginning of the morning and just catching up with them for 5 or 10 or 15 minutes. And I would know what was going on in their life and what they had planned for the day and the customers that called and orders that got placed, but they didn't know between each other. That was a huge mistake. And I went to this Lean conference recently, and I was talking to this guy at lunch, and we're talking about the 8 wastes. He said, we actually have 9 wastes. So, wow, what's the 9th? He said, poor communication / drama. And I'm going, wow, that's pretty insightful. And so for us, yeah, our waste right now is communication. And it creeps into the culture. If one guy has a rough day or is grumpy, that trickles throughout the rest of the company, just inevitably. And so now the morning meetings, one of the first or second slides we do is, what are you grateful for today? Just to get people in the right mindset. And in that, how was your drive to work? How are you feeling health-wise, family? And then what did you notice about one of your coworkers that you were really appreciated? So, getting people's minds all, on the same field, and then making sure that communication is decentralized.
Okay. Yeah, that's I had never heard that way. So that's a really good insight.
Yeah, it's not a traditional lean waste communication. When we moved into our current facility a year ago, we doubled our floor space, and it created obvious communication things like Jerry, the general manager of the company, he's about 50 steps away from me. And so I can't see him. We both have offices with glass windows, still can't see him. So we started using Voxer. It's like a walkie-talkie app that we use all the time. So we nabbed those communication issues pretty fast. But yeah, it was the cultural stuff that really caught us off guard.
Okay. No, that's great. Thank you.
That's really cool to see that, you're really focused on the attitude of the company. Because like you mentioned, if one person's grumpy, that's just going to kind of ruin the day for everyone. And it's cool to see that you're really team oriented. It sounds like, we're here to work. We're here to do the best we can. Let's get stuff out the door, and let's just get through the day in a positive way.
Yeah. So, a huge day of sales, the joy in that and the enthusiasm in that will totally get buried if I had an argument with one of my guys, or 2 of my guys are pissed off at each other. That's what I would go home thinking about. That's what they would go home thinking about. So really, culture is huge. And culture is, the more and more business owners I'm around, company culture is so important. And if you can set that in with lean principles, or if you are, like I mentioned earlier, a benevolent person looking out for the interests of others before your own, you can create a beautiful company culture that really thrives in their relationships, and then really at the end of the day, everyone's bank accounts. I'm convinced of it.
Totally. So I saw you hired Carlos, who is 400. So he does, for anybody who doesn't follow him on Instagram, you should. He does a ton of electronics repair and really cool projects. That kind of led into the question of what's next for Pierson Workholding. It seems like you guys are maybe venturing out into electronic-based things, or including that into your future products.
Yeah, absolutely. So Carlos is a rock star. He came to me. He was at this aerospace company that was shutting. Well, they're not shutting down, but they just weren't headed up. They were on a downward trajectory. And he put some, his story to me was that he put out some, resumes, and he had some job offers, and he couldn't decide. And then his wife one night just said, "Hey, what do you really want to do? And where do you really want to work? Like your dream job?" And he said, I'd love to work at this company called Pierson Workholding. And she's like, I've never heard that. What? Tell me more, So he just shot me an email, and I'm like, dude, I'm not looking to hire anyone, but come by. Just following him. I had followed his YouTube channel for at least a year, and I thought, wow, this guy's awesome. Meeting him, we really clicked. And so Carlos is bringing some of my long-term dreams into reality. So I love playing with Arduino, Raspberry Pi, all that stuff, electromechanical type things, motion control. And I had dreamt that Pierson Workholding would go the automation route at some point. But realistically, at the point that the company is, I've got so much to do just in continuing to build Pierson Workholding, that the automation, that probably would have never gotten off the ground. So Carlos came to me. Again, he's a rock star. All my guys are rock stars. I don't hire non-rock stars for the most part. He came to me, and I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm going to make this work, And so also going back to the branding, how it says Pierson, then it has our 4-point star with the tail. Below that, it says Workholding. It'll soon say automation as a second branch of the company. So we will have Pierson Automation as just a whole different segment of products that do everything from machine monitoring, tool status. The first product we're going to come out with, hopefully even the next month, is going to be a vacuum monitor switch that is electronic and settable and works with all brands. We've got all these little things on his plate, and we're literally buying thousands and thousands of dollars worth of electronic equipment to just get his lab set up, because Factory 400 is his home workshop. It's a 400 square foot garage that is crammed with so many awesome toys, mills, soldering machines, heat machines, pick and place circuit board machines, and all these, oscilloscopes and power supplies. It's like a grown up kid in a candy store type thing. We are building that at Pierson Workholding and to launch Pierson Automation. So that's going to be coming. I don't know when the branding is going to catch up, but the products are going to launch as soon as we can. So yeah, he's great.
Well, congrats. That's a big get, and it sounds like a really big move for you guys.
Totally. Yeah, everyone's tickled pink. So Carlos is a former business owner. He had a company called Solid Camera that made high-end accessories for the motion picture industry. So he feels my pain as a business owner. And so he's very conscious of that. So he's not spend. He didn't ask for a lot of money. And I think at his point, it's not about the money these days. It's about the impact. It's about the contribution. It's about being able to be as free as possible to use your entire skill set. Carlos gets to do everything from circuit design, programming, machining. So he's all smiles these days. He's awesome.
Yeah, I definitely understand that. If I didn't enjoy where I worked at my day job as much as I do, I probably would have pushed much harder to go full time at my shop already, because
totally,
I love the people I work with. I love the work I get to do. So I definitely empathize with that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, should we wrap it up there?
Yeah, I think we covered a whole bunch. And again, we really appreciate Jay, making the time, coming on, talking our ears off. And I mean, I'm so surprised that you say you weren't prepared, because
Yeah, really.
I fantastic guest. We're really happy to have you on.
Absolutely. I'd love to come back. Hint, hint, by the way.
We are more than happy to have you around the virtual roundtable anytime.
Cool. Sounds good.
Yeah, especially when you get that UMC 500 going. I'm going to pick your brain.
Yeah. I've been catching up, like I said, on the podcast, and I know you guys have gotten your eyes on them too. So yeah, we're going to do more videos about it too. I'd love to just promote the heck out of it, So stay tuned.
Yeah, that's going to be awesome. But I think that'll do it for episode 14. Unless Dylan, you have anything else to say?
No, just thanks for joining everybody, and go ahead and check out Pierson Workholding on their website, their amazing YouTube channel, Instagram, all that stuff. Check out Within Tolerance podcast on Instagram, and then Payton and I personal Instagrams, Proteum Machining and Hex Gadgets.
Yeah, so that'll do it for episode 14. Once again, thank you, Jay, for coming on. You're definitely going to come back when you get that machine. I can guarantee you that.
Great.
But yeah, we'll see you guys next Wednesday for episode 15 with Dylan and I. And other than that, we'll see you next week.
Thanks.